Good morning and welcome back. And if you just joined us, thank you so much for tuning in into Salam Media. Joining us in a bit, joining us in a bit live from Maputo is going to be Professor Nuvunga this morning. Professor Adriano Nuvunga is coming to us live from Maputo. He's the director for the Center of Democracy and Development, and he's going to be helping us to discuss the escalating post election violence, which is currently taking place in Mozambique. And this is following the recent election and the disturbing attacks on journalists that we've seen the images of doing the rounds on social media. The Mozambican chapter of the Media Institute for Southern Africa, this is MISA, has strongly condemned the use of force by the police, who fired tear gas and rubber bullets and were quite physical with members of the media during a press conference held by opposition candidate. This is Venancio Mondlane. This comes in the wake of, a very tumultuous time in Mozambique. There was also a general strike where Mondlane called to protest alleged electoral fraud, with tensions rising after the murder of two of his close associates. The situation has garnered, international attention, particularly, for us here in South Africa, who are, Mozambique's closest neighbors and quite strong allies. This also includes attention from the United Nations and the African Union, who have called for calm and restraint during this time. And Professor Nuvunga will be shedding light on these troubling developments that are taking place in Mozambique, and also just the broader implications for Mozambique's democracy and the treatment of not just journalists, but for the general population under such volatile conditions. Prof, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you, dissect the developments out in Mozambique for us. Excited to be chatting to you, even if it's under quite strange, difficult, and tumultuous times.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you very much for having me this morning. Difficult times in Maputo and Mozambique in general.
Mm, no, definitely, definitely. And I think, it's not something that is new. Mozambique has maybe what one would call a long history of political tensions during elections, but the recent violence seems to have escalated to a new level. Could you give us maybe a sense of what is driving this unrest, especially given the context of Venancio Mondlane and the killing of his two allies?
The Well, first of all, there was the election, which it's a sham. It's not a credible election, with the results that are being partially announced, not reflecting the will of the people, particularly the will of the young people that have turned in numbers to vote for their preferred candidate, who is Venancio Mondlane.
Mm,
Also, take into account that the, before the election, they excluded the political party that was supporting Venancio Mondlane. So it's a series of events. Now, the election comes in, the young people turn, vote, and evidence of fraud is everywhere in statistically significant percentages. And then Mondlane calls for nationwide strike for past Monday, the 21st of October. And ahead of that, on Saturday, there is this brutal killing of two prominent democracy defenders, Elvino Dias, the lawyer to Venancio Mondlane, and Paulo Guambe, who is the officer of political party Podemos. So this has been exacerbating the tensions, escalating the tensions, and on Monday, um, the day of the strike, The police was there in ways that we never seen before. We never seen the police in Mozambique exhibiting helicopters. We have never seen the police in Mozambique exhibiting snipers hidden in tall buildings, ready to shoot to Mozambicans. You know, Mozambique, it's a country that is grappling with kidnappings, is grappling with violent extremism in the north. We never seen the police exhibiting those means and bold readiness to act. But on Monday, we saw them equipping themselves, preparing themselves, attacking civilians, including attacking the presidential candidate Venancio Mondlane. Can you really, in a democracy, attack a prominent democracy opposition candidate that was massively voted, and who, even if fraud, he will come second? Can you really do that? So we see a situation where the establishment is doing everything to create chaos, because it has been using chaos to maintain in power.
Mm, mm, mm. One thing that really stood out for me, especially when it comes to the actions of the police, during these very very tumultuous times, was the treatment of journalists. The Media Institute of Southern Africa, I think, came out and condemned the police for their actions against journalists. This was during Monday's press conference. In your view, how does the treatment of journalists reflect on the current state of press freedom in Mozambique, particularly in this post-election period?
In Mozambique, there is no respect for the freedom of the media. There is no respect for the right of freedom of expression, which is manifested in various ways of attacking journalists. We have seen in that particular occasion, we saw the police using tear gas to target journalists that were covering the press conference of Venancio Mondlane. But that was not an isolated event. It's a pattern of attacking journalists, is a pattern, and is a pattern of targeting journalists to prevent them from doing their work. Two of those journalists needed to go to hospital to be assisted, and this is not novel. In the previous election, 2023 local government elections, journalists they were abducted, journalists were beaten, journalists were barred from accessing to the places where the voter counting was taking place. So it is a pattern of attacking journalists, is a pattern of denying the freedom of expression, is denying access to information and freedom of the press by using force, including in this case by physically targeting journalists with tear gas.
Mm, mm, mm. I have two back-to-back questions. Number one, the reaction of the international community. This is including the United Nations and also the African Union. These two organizations have expressed concerns over the violence. How do you see these calls for calm impacting the situation on the ground? How much of it will it be impactful, and how much of it is it just rhetoric? And secondly, is there any potential for mediation or resolution in the coming weeks, looking at the situation and how it currently is? What could be the potential way forward?
It is rhetoric. You know, if you look at how the electoral institution here in Mozambique is so disrespectful of the will of the people, uh, in ways that uh, everybody could see the evidence. I mean, and how dirty some of those evidence look like in terms of really disrespecting, destroying the votes, like changing the numbers in ways that it looks amateur. And observers were here, international observers were here. They issued their statements and then they went home. And it was new because we told them that the post-election is going to be violent. It's violent because Mozambique has history of not respecting the will of the people. The incumbent Frelimo, it has captured Mozambique's democracy. It has captured Mozambique institutions. It has captured Mozambique state in ways that they work for the Frelimo perpetuation in power, not for the will of the people to prevail. With that happening, it was important that the so-called international community did something bold. What we saw, there were statements here and there in social media, not really nothing in bold, substantive. Look at the African Union, just issued the statement. Why don't you call a press conference and be bold about this? Where is SADC now? And even South Africa, President Ramaphosa, I haven't seen him coming up in bold ways and engaging this, but also with a statement to encourage the public. He hasn't done that. And you know, if something serious happens in terms of violence in Mozambique, South Africa is going to be one of the affected countries. So why don't you come out and say, no, there's been a lot of violence. Mozambique needs to respect the will of the people that was expressed at the polls. So we haven't seen really solid action towards setting things right. I repeat, setting things right, which it is about respecting the will of the people. Now, as the way forward, we don't know where Venancio Mondlane is now. He's on the run. After he was attacked that day, tear gassed, they were chasing him, and he's on the run. We don't know where he is. He issued a Facebook message saying he's in uncertain part. So we don't know. Perhaps some credible players can come in to mediate a way forward. That would mean the government to stop this violence, because it is the government, it is the police that is attacking citizens. It is the police that is attacking political figures. So this has to stop so that politics can be conducted in peaceful manner, respecting our constitution.
I want to focus a bit now on I don't know, I can call them culprits, or you know, the protagonists in this whole conversation, which is the ruling party, Frelimo. How have they reacted to these protest movement? What are they saying, and what do you believe is? Do you believe that there could be maybe potential for broader social unrest in the whole of Mozambique going forward?
No doubt about that. Two comments on this. One, Frelimo's dominance was enabled, is continuing through violence against citizens. In each and every election, with the exception of the democracy founding election 1994, all the subsequent elections were followed by violence. And that violence is because the institution of electoral governance is not respecting the will of the people, and the people turn to the streets. In the past, it was the renowned leader, Afonso Dhlakama, who was leading the post-election demonstrations and leading to even instances of military violence. To understand what I'm saying is, after the 1994 peace agreement that ended the war here in Mozambique, we needed two more peace agreements because of post-election violence. Now, with the passing of President Lakama, it is the first time that we have these widespread demonstrations, because in the opposition circle now, there is a prominent, young, vibrant, charismatic candidate that is attracting young people, that is galvanizing young people who, in demographics of the elections, now they are the majority. And they are saying, no, enough is enough. And Frelimo, that controls the monopoly of violence in Mozambique, is saying, no, they're using that violence to stop the young people. So you have these two dimensions that, on the one hand, might make it difficult for a settlement. On the one hand, Frelimo says no, it will use the weapons to attack people because it is used to that. Remember, Frelimo, it's a former liberation movement that fought a 10-year liberation struggle, then survived a 16-year civil war. So they are used to that. It is in their DNA to use violence. But on the other hand, they neglect that these young people that we have today is not the young people of the past. These are born frees. These have nothing to do with the history of the liberation struggle, nor of the civil war. These people, they want jobs. They want livelihood. They want a state that is not corrupt, is not captured by the elite, is working for the people in a context of an exponential growth of population. So they fail to read this. And this, as I've said, it might make it difficult for a settlement.
I think we're going to leave it there, Prof. Thank you so much for unpacking the current developments out in Mozambique. And I think as the story continues to unfold, we'll be definitely catching up with you to get the latest out of Maputo. But thank you so much for going to leave it here for now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well, there you have it, Professor Adriano Nuvunga coming to us live from Maputo, where post-election violence has, seemingly reared his ugly head. And it looks like there's going to be really interesting and very uncertain times in Maputo, where, the current ruling party, Frelimo, is being accused of rigging the elections and also murdering some of the other political, opponents. And so, it's going to be really, really interesting seeing what happens going forward. And South Africa is going to be affected if there's a broader, escalation of violence in Maputo. We are direct neighbors to Maputo, so it only makes sense, to reiterate what Professor Nuvunga is saying, that South Africa should come out strong to condemn the actions of Frelimo. But as we've seen with what's happening in Zimbabwe, where ZANU-PF has been going on for such, impunity for such a long time, because, they share a rich history and relationship with the ANC, similar how Frelimo itself is also good friends of the ANC. So it's, quite interesting how the African National Congress will, try and advise or try to, be a bit stern when it comes to some of their Southern African counterparts, especially former liberation movements in this part of the world in SADC. So we'll definitely be catching up with Professor Nuvunga as this situation unfolds, because it does seem like there'll be more coming out of Mozambique. We're going to take a quick break. News and Views continues after this.
We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood. The whole neighborhood is already destroyed. More than 17 towers are down. Here, as you can see, the firefighters trying their best to help. The people are still under the rubble. A lot of the people.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Sha'alan. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments. Follow Salam Media on social media pages for more on this tour and be part of the conversation.